Keys to the Shop, episode 192, Providing Freedom Through Coffee with Esther Hope-Gibbs of Manumit Coffee. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show. Thank you so much for tuning in today on this Christmas Eve episode. And today's episode is going to be hopefully giving you all the feels, because what Esther Hope-Gibbs is doing with Manumit Coffee is nothing short of life-changing, and such a great conversation with her on what they've been able to accomplish at Manumit Coffee in the last little over 2 years of its existence, helping people out of modern-day slavery through coffee. So stay tuned for that conversation. I want to mention to you really quickly here that Keys to the Shop has been nominated for and is a finalist in the 11th annual Sprudgies. Sprudge.com puts this on every year, and it is essentially the Academy Awards of coffee. There's lots of different categories like Best Coffee Writing, Outstanding Achievement in a Field of Excellence, there's the Best Magazine, and then there's the Best Podcast for Coffee. And Keys to the Shop was mentioned in that crowd of amazing podcasters. And first, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who voted for Keys to the Shop and nominated Keys to the Shop. Second, I'd like to say if you want to vote for Keys to the Shop for Best Coffee Podcast, I have a link in the show notes, as well as one on the profile of Instagram. If you wanted to do that, it's just sprudge.com/vote. And do please vote for all of the categories, because there's some amazing people that have been doing some great things in coffee. Go to sprudge.com/vote to do that. Now, today's episode of Keys to the Shop is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is one of the world's best specialty coffee equipment suppliers, and that is because they are passionate about two things. One, they are just dedicated to curating the best equipment from all over the globe and matching it with the needs of all their customers, be it home or commercial. And two, they really are driven by a desire to see their customers succeed in the art and business of making coffee. And right now, Prima Coffee is running a really awesome discount for Keys to the Shop listeners, 5% off your order. Some restrictions will apply to that, but 5% off your order when you go to this link, prima-coffee.com/keys. And when you go there and you check out, just enter the code HOLIDAY5. That's the word holiday with the number 5 after it, and that'll get you 5% off your order. Super great offer from Prima, and it runs until January 31st. If you're in the market for commercial equipment for your coffee bar, be it grinders, brewers, espresso machines, or even under-counter refrigeration or sinks, anything, Prima Coffee has what you need, and I would highly encourage you to work with them for what you need in your store. You will not be sorry. They're amazing people and an amazing business. So again, prima-coffee.com/keys. Enter the code HOLIDAY5 for your 5% discount. This episode is also brought to you by the global leaders in plant-based performance beverages, and that is Pacific Foods with their Barista Series. The Barista Series is designed for and by baristas because they have high standards for what they want to use on their coffee bars, and Pacific knows this and works with them to come up with a great formula for every one of the offerings in the Barista Series line. So when you use the Barista Series oat, almond, rice, coconut, or soy, you can rest assured that it's going to be giving you a really amazing texture, great for latte art, and also it's going to be keeping the flavor balance of the beverage focused on the coffee, which is really important. They are just huge supporters of specialty coffee and the barista community. These beverages, and it's how well they're made, is a testimony to that fact. So I would encourage you to get these in your store and try them out for yourself. Let your customers taste them, see what they think, see what your staff think, and I feel like you're going to be really impressed by this. They do such a great job. Go over to pacificfoods.com, follow the link in the show notes, and find out more information about the Barista Series and what it can do to really make a difference in the quality of your plant-based beverages. So today we get to hear about some really amazing things going on in Wales with Manumit Coffee and how they are offering dignity and hope to survivors of modern slavery through training and employment. We're talking with Esther Hope-Gibbs, founder of Manumit Coffee. This is an amazing organization that is offering hope and dignity to survivors of modern slavery through coffee, through training and employment in coffee. It's really an amazing story, and we get to dive into that story with Esther today, her history in the coffee industry and what led to the founding of this organization. The coffee at Manumit is roasted by men and women who have suffered horrendous exploitation at the hands of traffickers and modern slave traders, and now they're rebuilding their lives through coffee and what Manumit offers in training. At their Cardiff-based roastery, they produce amazing coffee that combats modern slavery in three particular ways. First, sourcing specialty coffee from ethical and slave-free suppliers. Second, training and employing survivors of modern slavery as coffee roasters. And then they're investing all the profits in local and international anti-slavery projects. This is really both an eye-opening episode in terms of the real problem of modern-day slave trade, and it's also so encouraging and inspirational because here's somebody who is doing what she can to combat it with the skills that she has and is making such a difference in the lives of the people that go through this program. What a great conversation to present on Christmas Eve, somebody who is really giving people the gift of freedom through coffee. Here now is that interview with Esther Hope-Gibbs of Manumit Coffee Roasters. Well, Esther, welcome to Keys to the Shop. I'm excited to have you on the show and talk to you today.
Thank you so much for asking me to come on this. I'm actually fangirling a little bit at the opportunity to be able to talk to you on this podcast.
Well, I'm excited to dive into your story. I've heard so many great things about you and the work you do at Manumit Coffee. Of course, with every guest who's in a position like this, I like to sort of hear about their origin story and how they found themselves in the position that they're in. This isn't a career track that you elect in coffee college, if there were such a thing.
Yeah.
This is something you evolve into. So how did this all start for you in coffee and then becoming one of the founders of Manumit Coffee?
So basically, I've always worked in coffee since I was about 14. It was one of my first Saturday jobs, just doing like pot washing and customer service in a small cafe in Plymouth. And I just kind of fell in love with the coffee industry from there and worked my way up to be a barista and was thrown on the coffee machine and kind of had to teach myself to steam milk and just got absolutely engrossed in it. At the same time, I found out about how there was like 27 million people trapped in slavery worldwide at that time. And it was such a horrifying statistic for me that it was like, I just knew that I had to do something about it. Like thinking about all those people being individuals who have just as much agency and feelings and like lives like us. Just imagining 27 million people trapped, it's not something I could forget. And so I knew that I wanted to do something with my life to help end modern slavery. And I think at the time I was quite young and naive, and I thought I'd be like busting into brothels and like rescuing people. But actually, like as I grew more in my career in coffee, I realized that actually it's an amazing tool to use to empower people. So when I was 18, I traveled to Cambodia for 6 months and worked in a cafe out there that was employing survivors of modern slavery and teaching them how to set up their own businesses. And I really got stuck in there. And I was also really interested about supply chains and fair trade from a young age, and worked a little bit for Fair Trade USA, and just was really passionate about learning more and more about how coffee is grown and the relationships and the kind of power dynamics in that comes for us to have a cheap coffee at the end of the day. It's just been kind of like a big journey for me over the past 10 years of growing in coffee and finding out more about modern slavery. And then it's kind of created this niche for us to hire survivors of modern slavery to be coffee roasters. So one of the things that we had going on in Wales was there was a charity called Red Community where they support survivors of modern slavery in various different ways, which included like giving immediate money for things like books, clothes, bus money for the survivors to be able to go to college and different things like that, because to apply for funding for things like that, there's a lot of red tape and it takes a long time. Whereas the survivors and their support workers could apply for money directly from Red Community and get the money straight away. It just was a really big impact on those people's lives. And they also started up a befriending project where we partner up like just local people in Cardiff and South Wales to make friends with survivors of trafficking, and they commit to a year of friendship where they just every week go for coffee together or go swimming or take their children to the park, or just to help integrate them back into society, because they're really, really lonely and they don't really have any connections. Often their English isn't very good. It's like trying to help them build their community and just rebuild their lives through the power of friendship. And out of that, people started to say to us that when these men and women were getting their visas and the right to stay in the UK, they were struggling to get jobs because they didn't have anything on their CV. Like it would just be a massive gap for like 10 or 15 years, and you don't really want to put on that you were exploited in the sex trade or wherever you had been, or they were able to get jobs and then they were being fired or quitting within a week because of severe mental health problems or just lack of soft skills, like being able to show up to work on time or not calling your boss rude names or things like that. So we realized there was a need for a space that was like a almost training ground to help survivors get back into work and build up their confidence and their skills and have experience for their CV, and to learn to enjoy working again and see it as a positive, not like a negative or torturous thing. So we thought about setting up a cafe, like in general, but we realized that actually, first of all, if we were to promote it as this is where survivors of slavery work, it might not be very safe for them, because some of them have like court cases still ongoing or they're traffickers coming after them. So we decided on just having a roastery, which is in a really discreet location. We don't have any signs outside or anything like that, so people know that when they come to work, they're safe. No one will find them there, and they can just focus on doing the job that's in front of them that day.
Wow, man. This is also positive and heavy at the same time.
Yeah.
You're throughout your time in coffee, as you sort of had these two focuses, your personal growth in the coffee industry, and then focusing on the supply chains and the people exploited within these groups. What about the coffee industry struck you as being appropriate as a vehicle for bringing people back into a healthy ecosystem of work, as you're talking about people having a really hard time acclimating to a new set of normal, because that normal for them is so toxic and dysfunctional. What about the coffee industry really said to you, this is the place where you can really have all of those things happen for these folks?
Well, the coffee industry is obviously a growing industry. Like, there's always going to be jobs available within the coffee industry. So that was one thing that really struck us, was like the opportunities from being in a roastery to going on to work for another company. There's cafes, you could train as like equipment engineers, or there was a lot of potential growth for the survivors to come in and specialize in something that was unique to them. It wasn't just like a one size fits all kind of job that couldn't have prospects at the end of it. And then also I just think there's so many people involved in like the process from like crop to cup, that there's so much potential to empower people all the way through the supply chain. So from being able to make sure the coffee is sourced ethically and the farmers are paid not just like cost of production or the cost of living, but also like paid enough to make a profit and have a great life and support their families and grow their businesses, through to empowering people in the roastery to enjoy roasting the coffee, do the farmers justice as they roast their coffee to perfection. And then also at the other end, our profits go back into anti-slavery projects as well. So it's really been like, there's just so many hands involved in the process of coffee that it just seemed like we could have the most effect on people's lives through that product.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the idea that there are so many people in that community are lonely and need community. They need the coffee. Just seems like a perfect outlet as well, because there is, out of all the trades that you could be involved with, there are a lot of things that you could be learning to do, but coffee seems to me, and I bet you would agree, that it is a pretty communal trade, that even within roasting and importing, it gets a little bit less so in the like business export type areas. But with barista work and roasting, we have so many conferences and communities and networking. What a great benefit to land in a place like coffee.
And I think like so many relationships are built over just a cup of coffee as well, isn't it? Like so much community now is like going for a coffee with your friends, or like with our Red Community Befriending Project. So many of those relationships are built over coffee. I just think it's a really powerful vehicle for, empowering people in the community.
I live in the southern end of Louisville, Kentucky, and there's a lot of refugee resettlement happening. 100 languages spoken in this part of the city, and there's a lot of the coffee shops are really hubs for a lot of these communities, and they're just equally dispersed amongst all of the people who are from Kentucky or wherever. But the Ethiopian folks that are here, and the Vietnamese, and et cetera. And it's really a beautiful thing to see. And it's just, I'm reminded of that as I hear you talking about what you're doing there as well. And this is almost 2 years, or exactly 2 years old now. You started in 2017?
Yeah, June 2017. So 2.5 years, really.
Congrats. Well,
thank you. Yeah, we haven't gone under yet, so it's doing okay.
What has this first couple of years been like? I guess more specifically, when you're setting this up, what did you expect, and what have you experienced? I know there's probably a lot of challenges and also a lot of nice surprises along the way.
Well, when Manumit was set up, I think it started off, we had 2 survivors working for us just 1 day a week, and we shared a roaster with a guy called Pete, who owns a coffee shop called The Plug in Cardiff. And he had a roaster in his garage or in his shed that he wasn't using. And so we struck a deal with him where we said, if we pay for the overheads of a unit, will you let us use your roaster for free? And he was like, yeah, that's really good. My wife doesn't particularly want me to have this coffee roaster in the shed anymore, so worked out well for everybody. And then it was like a 5 kilo Pro Bat from the 1950s. It was like peeling paint and very smoky, very like, I look back now and I just don't know how we survived with it for so long and grew the business, because it was actually a nightmare. Like it would take over an hour to heat up to temperature in the morning, and then we could only do like 1 or 2 roasts an hour. So even though it was 5 kilos, we could only put like 2 kilos in there. Yeah, so I think there's the assumption that, or I always had the assumption that running a business would be really glamorous, but it's definitely been far from glamorous. It's been a lot of long days, long hours of roasting, picking out green beans from roasted beans when they've spilt the coffee, when they've put the coffee straight through without closing the bottom and it's still cooling in the cooling tray. All those kind of things have just been different to what I would have expected. I thought it was going to be a really glamorous job. Also expected that we would just have like one coffee that we would do as a house roast, and then maybe have a couple of other coffees, but our packaging reflects that, and like we actually grew much quicker than we expected, but we overbought on the packaging at the start, so we're still trying to get through the packaging that's not really fit for purpose. So that's been quite frustrating. There's a lot of those kind of problems that you have to tackle as you go through. I swear 90% of business is problem solving.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But by November so we started in June. By November I'd quit my other job and committed to full-time working for Manumit. Threw myself in and got really stuck in, and we had the SCA come and support us, which was really amazing. They offered us some training for survivors to do their foundation barista skills. It was actually Emma Haynes that came and did it. So they came and trained up our staff and a couple of other survivors, and it was just such an amazing opportunity. And then the SCA said that they would train me up to be an AST myself, so that I could offer certified training to as many survivors as possible. So that was a really unexpected turn. The support that we got from the SCA was quite a surprise. And then they've just been backing us really well for the past couple of years and helping us to go to different events and representing us at different things. So that's been amazing. Yeah, the support that we've got from the coffee industry in general has just been phenomenal. Like, people asking us to come and share our story and tell of how coffee is empowering these survivors' lives. That's been such a privilege to be able to share about it and raise awareness about modern slavery. It's quite funny actually, because the charity that we run, Red Community, does a lot of awareness raising for human trafficking, but this business has completely smashed the reach of that to globally raising awareness about modern slavery in a way that we never would imagine could have happened. So on every packet that somebody gets, they find out statistics about modern slavery and that it's still going on. And so that's just been such a great way to raise awareness and fight trafficking that we never considered. The other thing, going back to like it being glamorous or not, is that you think, oh, like working with survivors of human trafficking, that's really like such a lovely thing to do. Like, oh, it must be really rewarding. And it is really rewarding, but it's also really, really flipping hard work to, you're running a business, which as we all know is so stressful already. And then you throw vulnerable people into the mix as well. And it just lights up even more, troublesome behaviors and makes it even more stressful sometimes to run a business. Like all the trauma that's involved, appointments, court cases, like trying to tell the staff just like, you can't take a day off to go food shopping, that's not appropriate, or things like that I never thought I would have to be dealing with, or panic attacks and anxiety attacks, but that are going on. But then you still have the stress of needing to fulfill the orders, even though you need to create a safe space for them to calm down. Those kind of things have been really interesting to learn to balance.
How do you balance that in 2.5 years in, as you've, it's just said, quickly learned that this roasting, especially the roasting part of this, is not glamorous work. And then the business side of things, you're learning so many different things from a lot of different angles, but then that human element, the vulnerable folks that you're working with, the unpredictable reactions that they might have to things that you and I might just take for granted as being fairly straightforward. I wonder through the years, how has an approach to handling that and balancing that emerged? What does that look like for you and the people who are also in charge with you?
I think it looks quite different for each person. Sometimes it's like you have to have extreme amounts of compassion, understanding, and flexibility to fit around their schedule or their like just where they're at, really, and be really understanding to why they're being the way they are is because they've been through so many horrific circumstances, and just have that perspective on it rather than just thinking they're being really annoying or their behavior is really frustrating or upsetting. So I think perspective is a really big thing. And then also I've definitely had to learn to be really firm as well. Like I'm only like a young like woman, and I'm quite a positive person. I don't really like upsetting people, but I've definitely had to learn to stand my ground and be able to say no to people and have really firm boundaries. I think that's been a really big issue, is like, because these people have not had boundaries or have had extreme boundaries where they've not been allowed to do anything at all. They've been trapped and told what to do for every single like movement that they make. Then coming out of that, boundaries for them is kind of scary or is not something that they want in place, but having to stay, like, create those boundaries and stick to them and say, like, no, you do have to turn up to work on time. It seems really silly, but you do have to turn up to work on time. You can't leave work early today. And things like that has been really trying, because it can cause quite aggressive conflict sometimes. Or, for example, one of the ladies called me a really like horrible word the other day, and then and I'm not even sensitive, but then just turning around to her and having to say, do you know what, if you're going to speak to me like that, then you can either finish your shift now, or you can just go over there and grind coffee and just do the most boring job for the rest of the day. Like, you just can't speak to staff like that. You can't speak to anybody like that. Whereas for her, she'd been called that word her whole life by so many people. She didn't realize that it was so upsetting, or that you can't speak to other people like that. Or, like, often they don't actually care about coffee as much as we do, which in specialty coffee can be quite, like, obviously quality control is very, like, important. And when you're roasting, little tiny things can make such a huge difference, like not changing the gas at the correct time for the roast profile can affect the momentum for the rest of it and change the coffee in such a seemingly small way, but customers will notice. And trying to encourage that enthusiasm into the roasters has been quite a tricky thing. If you're not that passionate about coffee, or you're not in love with it or obsessed with it, then sometimes it can be really difficult to motivate them to realize that those little changes have such a big difference.
So in the day-to-day, it's like you're balancing the need for positive, long-term, valuable job skills with a sense of empathy and also a challenge to yourself. And I think at first blush, when you say, like, if somebody is being annoying, like, our first instinct, I think, is to be upset at ourselves for being annoyed at somebody, especially if they're from a marginalized or a victimized past. And we're like, well, how could I get annoyed with them? But we're all human beings, right?
Yeah.
And it's not your job to provide a frictionless environment necessarily. So that's it seems like a really hard road to walk, because even in the cafe, a lot of us as managers or trainers have a hard time laying down the law for employees who are so privileged.
Yeah.
Let alone in your position having to take a stand. I imagine you're just constantly thinking, if I don't, they're going to bring this into the workplace beyond this roastery, and that's going to sink their possibility of acclimation and all
exactly. That. One of the ladies that worked for us got a job somewhere else that we helped her to get, and then she got fired from that job for calling her boss a rude word. And so it's like we have to really teach them and be quite strict sometimes so that they can progress in their future with better skills and understanding of what is required from you in a workplace.
Yeah, obviously, you're coming from a background of having worked alongside of this venture, another job where the atmosphere is quite different. And most of us in this audience are from that, that part of the industry where we just have coffee shops, and we're not usually interacting with people that have extreme needs or pasts, as far as we know. So I guess my question is, like, when we hear your story and we kind of think about the extremes that have to be managed, what would you hope that we take away from your experience that we can apply in our own cafes? Or better stated, maybe, how has your approach to training changed in the way that you train people outside of this area? So if you're talking with somebody so you're an AST, I imagine you're not always training people from a modern day slavery background. What has changed about the way you approach people and life in general in that way from this experience?
I think one thing that's definitely stood out to me is how we bespoke like a training plan to suit the needs of the people who we are training. So for example, like if they don't have English as their first language, making sure that it's really easy to understand, and the comprehensive side of the exams, we talk them through it and make sure it's really clear and give them that extra support, or adapt the training space to make them feel safer or warmer, or different things that might be issues that the support workers have brought up with us. And then in a similar way, coming outside of that into the training with like clients that I have, and some independent training that I do, it is like doing the same thing for them, making sure that the training is like bespoke and suits the needs of them. It's given me a lot more confidence to do that. And the other thing is, like, for us, when we do the training to survivors, it's we try and focus as much as we can on not only making it a course where they can learn to use the coffee machine, but a course where they can understand what the role of a barista is and talk about it with confidence to help them in the job interviews or things like that, so that it's so when in part of the SCA foundation is like, what is customer service, and how do you set out the grinder in the machine, and what is it about health and hygiene that's important, and all those kind of topics that we cover. We do it from a perspective of how would you talk to your future employer and demonstrate to them how important this is. And so that's something that I've really tried to apply in my other training as well, is not only to make it about making great coffee, but really understanding what the role of the barista is and being able to talk with confidence about what you're doing. And if it's like an independent course, being able to prepare the students for an interview to talk about what their what's expected of them behind the machine and things like that. So it's definitely been something that I've really enjoyed using it to equip other people. And then the other thing with the roasting and the sensory type skills has been helping people to understand with the slavery as the perspective as well. Like we're all about showcasing the hard work of the farmers and everybody who's been in the supply chain so far. And so like the role of a roaster, I really teach them that you're just trying to showcase how much hard work and effort the farmers have put into growing that coffee, and be able to like make it the best that it can be. And then taking that onto the barista training, it's like we're trying to take the hard work that the roasters have put into perfecting that roast profile and the hard work that the farmers have put in to growing their coffee and harvesting and processing. And then the reason why the education is so important and making this coffee taste amazing is because you're representing everybody else in the industry and trying to keep that community based of like the whole of the supply chain. We're a team working together and showing off each other's hard work and dedication has been something that has helped to remember the hands of the people who have been involved before us. And I think that has definitely encouraged a lot of my students to care more about when they're making the coffee, because they feel the responsibility of the other people with them, rather than just, got to make Karen her flat white with extra hot oat milk Karen. Or whatever. So I've really enjoyed doing that.
And of course, that is the other side of the coin here, as your work deals with making aware, the greater world about sex trafficking and modern day slavery in its various forms, and partaking in the marketing of a product that has its own problems with exploitation is another area to manage and, as you say, represent well and also be above board with as a business. And that is definitely admirable and hard balance to strike as well. But what in these years have you been able to see in terms of like progress? Maybe what are some of the most encouraging results that you've seen in your students, the people who work for you? What stands out for you?
There's so many, like, honestly, it's just such a privilege to be able to run this business. There's so many stories of like just hope and transformation that's come through coffee roasting. One lady, she came to work for us, and she was really like hard exterior, kind of scary, like she did not like people at all, and she was very like just closed and quite tough to talk to because she just didn't care about anything. And she actually told me at the start that she really hated people. And after a few months, I was working one-on-one with her a lot. So we would do like a 9 to 5 shift together, and just chat whilst we were packaging coffee, or just chat whilst we were roasting coffee. And slowly, like, she began to become more trusting and things like that. And then after 6 months, she turned to me and she said, Esther, I think I would like to get a job somewhere in HR in the future. And I was like, wow, what? I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, just from your support and your this environment has reminded me that there is good in people. And she's gone on to, we helped her find a job in administration somewhere so that she can work her way up. And I actually met up with her a couple of months ago and helped rewrite her CV and update it. And she was like talking to me about applying for a foundation degree in human resources and things like that. So it's just giving people that space to grow has had such an outrageous impact on her life. Or there's another lady that worked for us. When she first started working for us, she was so nervous about getting everything wrong. She turns up to work over an hour early every day because she just doesn't want to be late. And then every time she would roast the coffee, she would call me over to check, like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And she was really, really like nervous and insecure, and always scared of burning the coffee. And then now she comes in and she's really sassy, and she's like, do you know what? I've been Googling, and actually I think this coffee needs to be roasted like this, and that we've been doing it wrong because it's this altitude. So we need to consider these, and these factors. And actually we're going to do it like this. And I'm just like, okay. So the pride that she now takes in her job and her role is phenomenal. And to see someone grow in confidence like that, like it's, for her, that's been like a 2.5-year journey of getting to that point, of being that confident. And there's obviously been like times where there's like 5 steps forward, 7 steps back. So it's not been like a straight trajectory up, but just being able to support her through that and be consistent has changed her life so much. And she said that, like, I've got a quote from her somewhere where she said, the working in the coffee industry has totally changed my life. And I just think that's so powerful that she's experienced such growth. And then I've got a couple of other like stories of one guy who works for us, and he started off packing, and we realized, hang on, he's really good, like he's almost wasted just packing. We need to like look into this. And it turns out, as part of his trafficking stuff, he was actually locked in a cannabis farm in the roof of someone's house for about 6 or 7 years. So he'd run a successful cannabis farm for however long, admittedly in terrible conditions, but he had all the skills of running a business. And so now we've been able to offer him a position as our warehouse manager, overseeing all of that kind of stuff, which has just been great to help him grow in skills in that way. And we've got another girl that's working for us, and she really wants to study business at university. And so we're giving her experience in other things like admin and finance, and like ordering processes and emails and things like that, so that she can have a lot of stuff to put on her CV when she will eventually apply for her business degree. And the Cardiff Business School, we have a really good connection with them, and they've offered her free classes as well to help her get experience to put on her CV. So like I said before, it's just amazing to be able to use coffee and almost exploit coffee from every angle to empower these people and bring them more hope and help them to dream again and a more profitable life.
Wow, that's so encouraging. And just like you said in the first example, as it applies to every example here, giving people the space to be able to sort of open up and show latent potential that they've not been allowed to show before. And even what I didn't anticipate with the gentleman who was basically repurposing what was a skill that was developed through enslavement to secure his freedom. And that is so powerful, and so thankful for the work you're doing there. How long do folks stay with you in the program, or is there a general feel for stay with us for a year, 2 years, and then we help you find a job outside? What does that cycle look like?
It's completely different for everybody that comes to work for us. So we just give them a like temporary contract when they come and work for us, which says 6 months, and then for review afterwards. Some people have stayed working for us, like I said, for over 2.5 years, and they're not quite ready to move on yet. Other people have come in and worked for us for 6 months and then been ready to find work elsewhere and have come to me and said, oh, I would love to do this, or can you help me with this application? And then other people are just kind of like in between that, where one lady, she was pregnant with twins, so she stopped working for us when she'd given birth, and we're still supporting her now, like as a community, rather than like as employers. But so we've been around her for that. Yeah, every single person that's come into us has been completely different in the amount of time that they've stayed. Another guy, he worked for us for probably a year, and now he works in a cafe doing apparently the best cappuccinos. All the old ladies love his cappuccinos.
Oh, man.
So that's what he's famous for.
Beautiful. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So this has absolutely been fascinating and encouraging. I have a final question for you, and that is, from all of this conversation, I think a lot of people have in their minds to do more with their business than just business. And coffee lends itself very well, it seems, to charitable work, be it locally or globally. And if people are inspired to try to take on something similar in their own businesses, taking on people from their community, for example, people who have been released from prison, people that have struggles with mental health and need help with recovery and job placement, what would you encourage people to prepare for and do to make a successful go of it? Or maybe even how would you encourage them not to go for it? Like, how would they know to not do that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one of the key things is being able to, I would say, don't go for it unless you have a good community of people around you yourself. So, for example, if you have your cafe team and that is a really strong team and everybody supports each other and it's a really positive environment, then you could invite someone more vulnerable into that space. But if it's already a toxic team that has a lot of clashes, or the staff just don't get on with each other, or there's a lot of issues, then definitely don't throw someone vulnerable into that, because it will just make it a lot worse. Or on the other hand, if you yourself are quite lonely or miserable, and you don't have a good community of like friends and family around you to support you, then I would say don't do something like this, because the amount of times you do get in really difficult situations and you cry yourself to sleep, or like some of the things that I've heard this year or this past couple of years have been really traumatic, or some of the things I've had to process with people, or court cases I've been to. Like, if I didn't have like a really good relationship with my mum who I could talk to about this, and like a good mentor and things, then I probably would have absolutely flopped by now. So I think that's really important. You know, they say like, look after yourself before you can look after other people. And I think that's really important to like make sure you're looking after your cafe team or your roastery team or yourself before you invite someone who you know is going to be hard work into that situation. But in general, it's been like so rewarding for us to be on a team with these amazing people. And I can honestly say that they've supported me through some really difficult times, and it's not just us like serving them or helping them, but they do the same back to us. One of the ladies that worked for us, she now lives out in Swansea, and when I had a market event out in rural middle of Wales in the middle of nowhere, she let me stay at her house and cooked for me and looked after me whilst I was working out there. So I think the idea that it's just us helping them, or that colonial perspective of us helping the poor or the weak or whatever, it's not like that. Like, it's supporting them and inviting them into a community where we both benefit from and help each other as well. I think that's really, really important perspective to have, that you're not saving the world or changing the world, but they're also being invited into your life as well to help and support you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Esther. How can people be in touch with you and, find out more information about Manumit Coffee online?
We have our website and our social media pages. So I monitor all of them as well. So you can definitely get in touch with us through like a direct message on any of the platforms, or drop me an email. And you can buy our coffee like through our website, or our wholesale process through email as well. And we're going to put on our website soon as well a list of all the places that stock Manumit coffee, so you can find somewhere near you to go and support us through our distributors. Yeah.
Perfect. And sign up to be a distributor yourself.
Yes. Get in touch.
Again, thank you, Esther, for the work you do, for sharing with us the stories of what has happened over these past 2.5 years. And I hope that it just continues to flourish. You're doing amazing work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this platform to talk to people about it.
Well, a huge thank you to Esther Hope-Gibbs for joining us on the show today and presenting us with such a great example of making a difference and where you can, and such great advice about having strong people around you and making sure that you are yourself in a position emotionally and mentally where you can handle the extreme ups and downs that can be present in a organization like this or in a project like this. If your business wants to take on something similar in your location, this is not something you enter into lightly. Of course, that wouldn't be fair to the people who you're trying to help. But I do hope that this episode inspires some of you out there to seriously look into what you can do to make a difference where you are. One of the ways that you can make a difference is by supporting people who are doing things like this, like Manumit Coffee. If you go to manumitcoffee.co.uk, I would encourage you to buy some coffee from these folks that are roasting amazing coffee and learning the skills necessary to find freedom from modern-day slavery. I can't think of a better cause. This is such a great organization. Again, manumitcoffee.co.uk, and sign up for their email list as well so you can be up to date with what's happening at Manumit Coffee, and follow them on Instagram as well. Their handle is just Manumit Coffee. And if you're wondering about the spelling of the word Manumit, that's just Manumit, Manumit Coffee. So if you want the transcript for this episode, just go over to keystotheshop.com and sign up for the email list. Just go to the contact page, fill out the information, and you'll be signed up to receive the email on a weekly basis that has the transcripts from each episode, as well as some bonus resources and sometimes some bonus audio as well. So you can do that over at keystotheshop.com, which is also where you can find every episode of Keys to the Shop, and actually working on getting the Shift Break episodes uploaded to that website eventually. But every main episode on Tuesdays, also the Founder Fridays, you can find those over at keystotheshop.com/episodes, and from the beginning to the end. In fact, that's probably where you're going to go if you want to get some of these early episodes, because Keys to the Shop is going to be entering into the 300 episode range, which, for iTunes at least, it starts cutting off episodes starting from the beginning. So if you want to get some of those early episodes, you'll have to go to the website to do that over at keystotheshop.com/episodes. And with that, that is the end of our episode today. Thank you so much for taking time to listen and supporting the show over these years, sharing episodes, subscribing, commenting, rating, reviewing, all of that. I sincerely appreciate it. As the year comes to a close, I'm looking at some really great episodes in the new year, and so excited to share those with you as they come out. And stay tuned this Friday as we talk with Canary Coffee in Milwaukee for our Founder Friday, last Founder Friday of the year. It's a before and after episode, and you won't want to miss that. So that's it. Thank you so much again. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.